Welcome to Tokyo Wave, recorded in a live studio in Harajuku, Japan, with your hosts Aaron and Parker. All right, everyone, welcome to episode 39 of Tokyo Wave. We're your hosts, Aaron Randall
and Parker Allen. Today we are joined by a special guest, Ohkanda Riki, director, storyteller, and consultant for Japanese film and TV productions.
On Tokyo Wave, we bring you weekly updates from our studio in Harajuku.
Join us in segments featuring this week's top news,
political happenings,
business,
and other random stuff.
Here are this week's top news highlights.
Japan recovery from pandemic likely to be slow due to vaccine approval delays.
Heavy snow strands 1,000 cars on highway and causes blackouts in Niigata.
Police panel seeks permit system for crossbow possession in Japan. This week in Japan.
All right, here's our first top news item for this week. Japan recovery from pandemic likely to be slow due to vaccine approval process.
GG Press has reported that Airfinity, a British medical analytics firm, estimated that Japanese society would fully return to normal from the novel coronavirus crisis in April 2022.
Airfinity projects that Japan will be the last developed nation to recover due to a slower anticipated rollout of vaccines. For a midlife crisis.
Airfinity projected how fast nations and regions will be able to normalize through large-scale vaccinations and achieving herd immunity.
The United States is expected to see the fastest recovery according to Airfinity in April 2021, Canada in June 2021, Britain in July 2021, the European Union in September 2021, and Australia in December 2021.
So they think the US is going to recover before Japan, huh?
Uh-huh.
Airfinity also projected that countries with large populations will be slower to recover, with China expected to return to normal in October 2022 and India in February 2023.
Nikkei Asia recently reported that vaccine maker Pfizer has tested its vaccine on 44,000 people in 6 countries, but only 5% of the people in those trials were of Asian backgrounds.
Japan's Pharmaceuticals and Medical Devices Agency has argued that while the global results will be taken into account, separate tests need to be conducted on Japanese individuals to prove efficacy and safety.
The Pfizer vaccine is said to be more than 90% effective in preventing the new coronavirus disease.
Pfizer began conducting a small-scale trial in Japan on October 20th. Its results, as well as those of the large-scale global test, are expected to lead the US drug maker to file for approval in Japan.
On December 18th, Pfizer filed with the Japanese government for approval of its vaccine. The Japanese government has already agreed with Pfizer to receive a supply of 120 million vaccine doses, which is enough for 60 million people, or roughly half of the Japanese population.
Wow, that's pretty incredible.
What about the other half, Aaron? They're screwed.
Put them on boats. Examining such an application usually takes a year, but the PMDA says the process will be expedited in light of the emergency.
The Japanese government has the goal of vaccinating its people before the country hosts the Summer Olympics, which are scheduled to start on July the 23rd of next year. However, it's not so certain whether they will be able to meet this timeline, given the situation.
Right. But I mean, this is good that we have dates, we have targets, right? And, we don't need to get the vaccine to everybody. There's, critical groups that we need to get it to. The fact that they think they're going to be able to get it to 60 million is pretty mind-blowing.
The big problem here is, of course, the major vaccines have to be kept at a very low temperature. I think for the Pfizer vaccine, it has to be stored at -70 degrees centigrade.
Right. I think we talked about
and
this.
it only lasts for 10 days.
Ah, jeez. Wow.
So yeah, it's a hot potato. Got to get those needles stuck.
Just a guy running around sticking needles.
And you have to do 2.
Ah, that's right. Yeah.
So that's why 120 million doses is good for 60 million people. So you have to do 2. You do a first one and then a second one after 3 or 4 weeks. And then your goose is cooked against the coronavirus.
Yeah. Let's just hope for a quick rollout. All right. And up next, heavy snow strands 1,100 cars on highway and causes blackouts in Niigata.
Kyoto has reported that heavy snow along the Sea of Japan coast stranded about 1,100 cars on a highway on December 17, also leaving more than 10,000 homes without electricity.
About 750 vehicles on the southbound lanes and 350 on the northbound lanes of the Kanetsu Expressway, which connects Tokyo and Niigata Prefecture, were completely stranded.
Many people were forced to stay overnight in their vehicles, and in response, the Japanese government deployed these self-defense forces for disaster relief.
According to the police and highway operator East Nippon Expressway Corporation, the line of cars stretched up to 16.5 kilometers at one point. The congestion was caused after a trailer got stuck in the snow near an interchange in Minami Uonuma, Niigata, on the night of December 17th.
You know, I saw this and then I got a line message from Marc-Antoine Astier, who is the guy who took our pictures for Tokyo Wave, which you might be looking at right now if you're watching this on YouTube. And he was stuck in this traffic jam.
Oh, no.
I think he was stuck for over 18 hours, and I got a message that he finally got out of it at 2 a.m.
Jeez. Yeah.
And instead of going back to Tokyo, which was the intention, they turned around and stayed at a hotel in Niigata.
Ah, probably smart. Yeah.
Apparently, it was super cold, obviously, because of the snow.
Yeah.
And because of all the cars stuck in the traffic jam, they actually had to get out of the car from time to time in order to not be asphyxiated by the carbon monoxide.
Oh my gosh. What a nightmare. Well, hopefully that's done now.
So the self-defense forces came in and cleared the expressway, and people actually went in reverse to get out of the traffic jam.
Ah, okay.
So I don't know if they've completed the clearing work by the time of this recording, but it was pretty bad.
At least it's not as bad as that perpetual traffic jam somewhere in China. I think it's been going on for like 3 years. Have you heard of this?
No.
Yeah, interesting.
Next up, police panel seeks permit system for crossbow possession in Japan.
GG Press has also reported that a panel appointed by the National Police Agency has proposed the introduction of a permit system for possession of crossbows to prevent crimes involving the weapon.
Crossbows, you heard that right, crossbows. As crossbows are not regulated under the existing act for controlling the possession of firearms, swords, and not crossbows, in their report, the panel underlined the need to implement effective measures against the misuse of crossbows.
The report stated that crossbows have the power to put people's lives in danger. Really? The report proposes that those wanting to possess crossbows should seek permission from local public safety commissions and should use them for limited purposes, such as for animal anesthesia, academic research, and sports.
Hey, Mr. Police Officer, I need to get a crossbow.
It's for the research, you know?
We gotta make sure that none of these, bad animals, monkeying around. It's for the monkeys, yeah, with the red butts, you know.
I got a lot of bad animals in my apartment, you know what I'm saying?
All over the place.
Yeah.
The National Police Agency set up this panel to discuss crossbow regulations after 4 people were killed or injured in a crossbow attack in Hyogo Prefecture in June of this year.
The report also said crossbow distributors in the nation should be registered with public safety commissions and that those buying crossbows should be required to present their possession permits.
It's okay, right? Here, I've got my permit. Look at it. Look at it. I don't look crazy, do I? It also said online sales of crossbows should be regulated in ways similar to hunting guns and air guns, which require delivery staff to decapitate or check the buyer's identification.
Although the exact trading volume of crossbows in Japan is unknown, there are distributors that have sold over 1,000 units annually.
There's stockpiles of crossbows all over the country.
Yeah, wild.
And the police are going to hunt them down one by one with their own police-issued crossbows, which is okay, right?
You know, being from Florida, I mean, this is a thing. A lot of people have crossbows. A very, very crazy friend had one and would use it quite often in dangerous ways. So, yeah, this is nothing to mess around with. I'm surprised.
I didn't know you had monkeys in Florida.
We have some. All right, and coming up next, we have a special interview with Ohkanda Riki, director, storyteller, and consultant for Japanese film and TV productions.
You're now listening to Tokyo Wave.
Riki, thank you so much for coming on Tokyo Wave today.
Hi, nice to meet you guys.
Originally from Chicago, Riki moved to Japan in 2002. After graduating from International Christian University in Tokyo and the Hollywood Film Institute of Dubai, Riki began working in the Japanese entertainment industry, including work on TV dramas Aibo, Yonimo Kimio no Monogatari, and Sherlock Untold Stories.
Her work in films includes Demikin, Love and Peace, and the upcoming G.I. Joe Snake Eyes.
Yes, folks, that's right. G.I. Joe! Apart from working on various productions, Riki has also written scripts, Kindle ebooks, and done extensive acting work. In 2019, she worked on the video game The Quiet Man by Square Enix.
Yes, so Riki, thank you so much again for taking the time out of your day to come on our show.
Oh, thank you for inviting me.
You know, whenever we have a guest on the show, I think the first question we really like to ask and hear from is their Japan story. You know, what brought you to Japan and what was kind of your journey coming here?
I was an international school student for most of my life. And when I decided to go to university, first it was over in Chicago. And while I was in university in Chicago, I thought, I'm really bored here and I don't want to be here anymore. I want to go see the world. And one of my friends happened to be Japanese because I was put with the international students as a result of coming from Budapest at the time. And they said, well, try Japan. And I was fascinated, never been to Japan. I was studying philosophy at the time. And one of the philosophy articles there was written by Murakami Yoichiro. And he happened to still be alive and he happened to be teaching at ICU. So I'm like, okay, I'm just going to go there. And so I did.
Oh, very cool. You said you were in Budapest, Hungary as well.
That's right. For high school, I graduated from AISB, so the American International School of Budapest.
Oh my gosh, that's incredible. So from there to Chicago to Japan.
Yeah.
And then also Dubai?
Well, Dubai. So at the time, my father lived in Dubai. This was just as I was finishing college. He was like, there's this film school. I know that I was already working in the film industry as an assistant director anyway. My dad's like, there's this film school that's opening here in Dubai. Are you interested in coming to study? And I'm like, why not? So that's where I got my Dubai passport, I guess.
Very cool. But philosophy was the real thing that brought you to Japan.
Technically, it's called the philosophy of science.
Ooh.
So philosophy of science is better categorized as history. So you're studying what kind of scientific discoveries were made during what periods in history and what sort of social situation influenced the proliferation of certain kind of discoveries like that. So that's called the philosophy of science.
That sounds like a very ICU thing to learn. So I also went to International Christian University, or ICU as it's often referred, for 2 years in my undergraduate years. And I took a class at ICU on the history of Japanese political thought.
And that's fun. I would have liked to take that class too.
The professor was crazy, in case you were wondering.
They all are. International Crazy University, right?
Exactly.
After ICU, you ended up staying in Japan?
Well, at the time, I wasn't sure what I wanted to do, as many kids are when they just graduate university. But one of my friends was a director over at Nihon Television. And I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do. And he was like, why don't you become an AD? And I'm like, what's an AD? They're like, we'll show you. So unfortunately, that was my entrance into the film industry here. It started out as an assistant director. It's called a fourth, or kind of a runner in Japanese television for television dramas. You're just learning the ropes. You're carrying around a clapperboard. You're making coffee. That's about it. And then you keep on climbing the ladder little by little until eventually you get to a director's position. So it just kind of happened before I intended it to happen. And one of the things of this industry is once you get into it, you get really used to it and you're like, I'm going to quit. Every single day you're like, I'm going to quit. I'm never going to do it again. This is the end of it. Nope. Okay, all done. And the next day it's like, we have another offer. Want to try? Okay, it's going to be better than last time. It never is.
Oh, wow.
It's like being a New Yorker. I gotta get out of here.
Yeah,
This
sounds
place
like
is
it.
garbage.
Like a maze.
So kind of working as an AD in the Japanese entertainment industry, how long did this last for?
It's been, as of March, it was 15 years.
Oh my goodness.
Once you get up to the second AD and first AD, it's interchangeable with director. So when you're in this kind of this kind of group, so you film director kind of things in the meantime. So it gets a little better and a little easier at points, then a little bit more difficult. But for the last, I'd say maybe 7 years, it's been the enjitsubu kind of level. But yeah, about 15 years now.
Very cool.
Do you get to yell cut?
I do.
Ooh.
Some directors, if we have a really small budget, we still carry around the clapperboard in television and in movies, by the way. But some of the directors, they actually hang on to the clapperboard because it's so fun. It's like clack. So it's like cut, click. It's great.
Very cool. Very cool.
I could just imagine, like after the shoot, you go to karaoke and just someone just pulls out a clapperboard. It's like,
that has happened before a couple of times.
I knew it.
Oh, wow.
So you have extensive experience in the Japanese entertainment industry. How did you get started?
It was a lot about who you know and when. So going back to my high school days, I used to work in musicals partially when I was a kid abroad. And those connections over there helped me get a part-time job over at Parco. And Parco at the time was doing a English language version of a Japanese play. It was called University of Laughs by Mitani Koki. And they needed some English language people who were kind of involved in the industry enough to know what's going on. So that was kind of my entrance into it. And in the meantime, I was doing a lot of extra work too, because I know how a film set kind of worked generally. But, I didn't speak the language. So all I could do was kind of stand there and smile, which is what most extras do in the meantime while learning the Japanese language. So it was through the television connections by extra work and the stage connections I was doing in the meantime that kind of introduced me to people who were already working in the industry. So it just kind of seemed a natural direction to go in because I didn't really want to do anything, adultish at that time.
Right on. Yeah. No, I hear you there.
It's really hard to put together because I'm not really sure.
Yeah, it just flourishes, Yeah.
It just happens, know.
Yeah.
No one really knows why they get into the film industry. It's just somehow one day you wake up and you realize, oh my God, what am I doing? I'm in
It's
this
your
film
scene. And you don't know any of your lines.
It's just like that.
Stage fright.
Sure feels like that.
Wow. Is it like what is it? Once Upon a Time in Hollywood? Did you see that, Tarantino?
Oh yeah, I love that. It was great.
Me too.
It's the best movie.
Yeah. Is it like that?
Yeah, I would say it's like that. It
Really?
is. I mean,
Okay.
it's very casual. I mean, people are expecting all these like big flashy Hollywood lights, but that's because we're making it look like it's supposed to be big flashy Hollywood light kind of lifestyle, when in fact it's just a bunch of people with a camera and a mic. You're running around, you're thinking of ideas, you're chasing after producers, finding extras and casts and things, and pulling it all together. So it's not as organized as some people might think it is. So I kind of like the thought of, everyone knows each other on a very casual basis in the same way that they did during that film.
Very cool. Yeah. That film definitely. I wasn't sure if that was realistic because Tarantino kind of goes off into his own world. There was an Eddie Murphy movie too that came out that you talked about, Parker, And it also had that very
Dolomite.
Dolomite, yeah.
You saw Dolomite?
I did. I loved it. But that also had a very casual flavor. I mean, you know, they needed extras for some scene, and the next day they would find like 3 people, then throw them in the movie.
Hey, you crackhead over there. Come play this crackhead.
There was another movie. I think it was in the Japanese title was Big Movie. But I think Bowfinger or something like that. I think it was also like one of those Steve Martin kind of movies. Mm-hmm. But it was also a very similar kind of a feel. It's very random, very floppy, and all the fun stuff about it, and all that like pizzazz. It all happens in post production.
I love that. I do music, and that's really the way that a lot of albums and kind of arrangements come together. It's just it's very random, and like you said, yeah, a lot of it's all post, right?
Yeah, that's what the magic happens.
Yeah.
This is boring. We need more explosions.
Yeah.
Bring the 3D guys in.
You know what? As a matter of fact, today's filmmaking, a lot of it does have to do with that. I have worked on even smaller productions too, and you use a lot of green screen, and you're just not enough people there, and so they will take some people from the other group over there. You know, they'll grab a bunch of people on top of green screen, we'll move them in post, and just like kind of fill auditoriums with when there was absolutely nobody there, and just sound over there just makes it sound like it's full of like thousands and thousands of people. We still do that now, so it's great. It's fun.
Oh wow, very cool.
All right, people, moving to the next row.
We did that too.
Awesome.
So what's it like working with famous directors and entertainers? I saw that you previously appeared on a TV variety program hosted by SMAP. What was that like?
It was not, you know, one of the things being a foreigner in Japan is that you don't really know all the famous people. And especially when I did a lot of television work, when I used to appear on television was when I was still in college. So that was, God, years and years and years and years ago. So at the time, I knew nothing about Japan whatsoever. So they would sit me as an extra or as someone on a television program. They'll put me next to someone extremely famous, and I'd have no idea who it is. So to me, this is just, oh, dude with lots of makeup on. Okay, and that's all I know. So it wasn't something that you'd be nervous about. But afterwards, you would encounter people who would see the programs and be like, oh, you met so-and-so. Oh, my God, what was that like? And I was like, I don't even know who that is.
Oops. Was I supposed to make a big deal out of this person?
It really feels like that, too. I mean, like the only person that I can think of that I would kind of somehow explode if I saw would possibly be Scorsese, because Scorsese is the greatest director ever. But
agreed.
Aside from him, I mean, there's no one else which I would actually fangirl about. So I never had that kind of nervousness. Oh, I'm going to meet someone famous. Wow. Never had that.
Well, and especially what you say about, you know, foreigners not being so up and up on who's who in famous Japanese people. I had a friend who was talking to me about a dinner party that he attended, and he sat next to Gakuto, which is, you know, like Michael Jackson level Japanese, you know, recording industry veteran, musician, and crazy dude extraordinaire. And Gakuto is known for being really, really big about being Gakuto. And apparently he expects everyone to know who he is. And this guy was sitting next to him, and Gakuto asked him, do you know who I am? And he said, no, sorry. Who are you? And for the rest of the evening, Gakuto was absolutely pissed at this guy.
Wow.
Oh my God. You can't even really blame him. Like, I would think that, you know, if I'm not Gakuto, of course, but if I were Gakuto, I'd be like, you don't know who I am? I'll tell you. And they're like, oh God. I guess they didn't.
That's not how it went down. Apparently.
Oh God, no.
Riki, were there any like very specific people that really stuck out to you though? Maybe they weren't particularly famous, but really interesting characters?
Oh, wait, there were a couple of them. You know, one of the actors I think who's kind of vaguely underrated is Toyokawa Etsushi. Mm-hmm. Toyokawa Etsushi, I mean, he was, in his youth, he was this kind of like pinup boy for a little while and very completely uninteresting. But as he got older and got more lines on his face and stuff, he suddenly become really manly. And so this is the kind of guy who I think has a chance in action movies over in the States. But on the other hand, he has a terrible voice. He has one of those really nasally kind of like girly voices when he speaks these days. So I think he knows this. So when he's speaking Japanese, he kind of whispers these days because he kind of figured it out. But I kind of want to see more of him in more in darker, more interesting roles. He's one guy. And I think also for a young lady, Baba Fumika is an actress who's nobody knows, maybe C-lister, maybe. She was supposed to make a big break last year in a film that got canceled as a result of unfortunate scandals that happened in the industry. And I was actually on the staff for this film too. So it kind of broke my heart when it was canceled. We worked so hard at like a zero budget to make a good film. And it was a really good film. But the lead actor got into a lot of really big scandal. They canceled the film, everything, and she lost her big break. So they put her in films and dramas afterwards. But she started out as kind of like a Gravia model. So, bikini girl, right? So no one really takes her seriously at this point. They're like, okay, that bikini girl, right? Okay. And that's all they think of her. When in fact, she's actually a really good actress. She's actually good at what she does. And I want to see more difficult, more complicated roles for her as well, too. Looking forward to that.
Very cool. Very cool. I have to ask, just because this is one of my favorites. Have you ever worked with Shunji Iwai? I think is.
Yeah, I worked for him.
Really?
Yeah, I worked at his company for God, how long was that? That was Rockwell Eyes. I was in charge of his production over there while he was doing a couple films. So yeah.
Oh my God! So one of my first introductions to Japan, I think I was in high school. We saw the film All About. Is it All About Lily Shushu?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Were you involved with that film at all?
No, that was before I got to Japan, actually.
Oh, okay,
okay. No. The ones that I was closer to be involved in was more recent ones, things like Bride for Rip Van Winkle and that kind of thing. And a lot of short films. We did a Telebi Tokyo drama series was at that time. He had kind of retired from filmmaking at the time, but
They all retire, right? Miyazaki too.
No more. And then suddenly they get an idea. They're like, I have to make this film.
Yeah. Oh, that's so cool.
He's a great guy, by the way. He loves wine. He only drinks he drinks a lot of wine, but he only has one meal per day because it's apparently good for his health. He loves talking philosophy and he loves talking about politics and has very strong opinions about things. But what's fun about it is that he enjoys debating it too. So even if you're not on the same side, you can sit across the table, enjoy your wine, be like, well, what about this? And what about this? And you're still best friends afterwards. So I really enjoy hanging out with him.
Very cool. Yeah, his films were very special to me and a small group of people back in high school. That's wild that you've worked with him. That's really cool.
So you have a rare opportunity to be inside these Japanese productions. And it seems like in recent years that with Netflix and Amazon Prime, there are many more opportunities for Japanese content to become popular around the world. Where do you think the Japanese entertainment industry is headed? And how do you see your role as a bilingual interlocutor evolving in the future?
Well, Japan is just starting to get a little bit wise to online streaming. Unfortunately, Netflix and Amazon and all those big providers, they're limiting their content to area. So they're only allowing Asian films and Asian content. It's very rare for something to cross over. There's a lot of money involved in that kind of area about distribution. North American content, European content, they cut it off. And when I think it was Netflix first arrived, they were all like, yay, kurofune. And they were thinking, yay, we're going to get our films out to the world, right? Because distribution on international level is extremely expensive. And the budgets that we have over here in Japan, we can't cover that. So they were thinking that Netflix was going to distribute it worldwide, just like using the entire internet to its advantage. But it didn't happen. They really cut it off. And what's worse, the people who were in charge of it at the time, they in fact cut it off so much. So they made only Japan-specific content. So it started out just as another channel, but online, right? And it didn't work out, not in the beginning. But years passed and people learned how to deal with the situation. They kind of Japanified their production style, as well as Japan kind of got more aware that internet can be used to their advantage. So right now, there are a lot of films and productions which are trying very hard not to distribute through film and not to distribute from on television, but instead to actually start out working online. And so let's try making this drama specifically for online people. And due to the pandemic, for obvious reasons, people are at home now. They don't go to the theater like they used to. And a lot more people are watching these online channels. So there is a lot of potential there. But on the other hand, at this moment, a lot of things are still in production. We can't stop television. So we're still making television dramas and movies. We never had this huge lockdown on our industry like many places did in the world. So we're still making stuff. So the problem is, are we allowed to make stuff? Are we allowed to make television dramas and stuff? And how are we going to distribute it once it's made? So all the movies that I'm working on in the pre-production kind of gathering money kind of point, they're coming up a lot of roadblocks. They're like, well, should we distribute online? Are the online companies becoming more picky with content? Not that it's a bad thing per se, but when you have creators with nowhere else to go, they'd like to submit more content and they're not sure if they can get into the industry. But they are aware that it's going in that direction, hopefully.
Me and my girlfriend watch a lot of Japanese dramas. And usually in the beginning, I might not be particularly interested in the drama she wants to watch, but I get sucked in. And as soon as it's over, I'm like, okay, I want to watch that again. And then they have, a commercial. And it's like, okay, you can buy it on DVD. And, so it really seems like it's still a thing. And they're a lot of these studios aren't really crossing over to streaming.
I think it's because they don't have any control over the platforms.
Yeah.
Like, Nihon Television or Fuji Television or even Toei or Net or whatever it may be, they have their own distribution channels. And they can control the content. They can control when it comes out and how and the medium and all that other stuff. Whereas for example, Netflix is one of them, but they have very strict guidelines for how things are made. So it has to be filmed in 8K. I think it's like something 6K or something like that. It has to be filmed in plus 4K. It has to be filmed with a certain amount of sound. It has to be filmed with all these really very tight specifications. And I understand it's for streaming and online, but most film in Japan, even on television, it's not made that way. I mean, I filmed cuts for television on my iPhone because we couldn't get it low enough to the ground. So I just took out my iPhone and filmed a few cuts, and we use those on air, and that's okay. So within the tight budgets that we have and the structure that we have in Japan, it's very hard to just kind of flip it to somebody else's specifications, right? So I think that's why they're slow on it. They're talking about it, but on the other hand, now that we have had the pandemic, the online streaming services, they've gotten a lot more powerful. So they're even more controlling of the content. So there's this, tug of war going on right now between traditional filmmaking and distribution channels. So.
Yeah, I just personally see it as a huge opportunity and almost like the calm before the explosion of all this, content that's only aired once here in Japan. And then the rest of the world, there's a lot of people out there that love Japanese dramas, Japanese anime, Ghibli films. I think Ghibli is one of the biggest. Oh my God. I think they could make their own streaming platform if they wanted to. I don't know. Are they working on something like that?
Ghibli Plus.
They really could. Oh my God. They could make so much money.
I think that Ghibli was bought by, what's it called? Disney.
No.
I don't want to break your heart, but I have a feeling it was bought by Disney.
Let me check it out.
I might be wrong. I've heard rumors.
I know all Ghibli films, not all, but most of them are distributed by Ghibli. Oh, wow. Yeah. Disney has invested 10% of the production costs to all future Ghibli movies.
And you have to remember, I mean, Ghibli is a wonderful studio, but I mean, what was really amazing about it was Miyazaki Hayao. And after he stopped making films and he kind of handed the reins on, I mean, nothing has been good. I mean, this is just personal opinion, but it does not have the detail and does not have the heart that it used to have.
Right.
So it's just like, it's the style that he sold, but you can't sell a person's mind,
Right. Yeah.
Especially a person who happens to look a lot like Colonel Sanders.
He does look like Colonel Sanders.
I think he has a secret recipe.
That's where you're going with that. Yeah, who knows? Maybe Disney will help get Ghibli out to the world. I think, thanks to YouTube, like Ghibli music has definitely blown up. It's like if you look at some music from a lot of these Ghibli films, you've got like 70, 90, 100 million views on just random users uploading the songs. And it's because no one's really heard a lot of this music before, right?
You know that one of the largest problems that we have in the film industry regarding distribution is not with the films themselves, it's actually with the music. So Jazzrack is they're the copyright holders for all the music in Japan. They're extremely powerful. So they will not, it's like we can distribute this film abroad. Yay, we've got this channel, but Jazzrack like, sweet, nope. We want the money too. We want just as much money because that's our song in there. And so they're asking for twice as much for just putting that one little clip of 30-second music in there. And so a lot of the films which could potentially be distributed abroad are stopped there. Like, no, we're not paying that much. And Jazzrack's like, okay, fine. And so they're kind of hardballing it right there. So music is very hard.
No, that makes sense. My inner weeb is going to come out. But with Evangelion, they released it last year in Japan. And
oh God, the inner weeb.
But they released it on Netflix in the US and Japan. And notoriously, the US version didn't have the Fly Me to the Moon song in the ending credits. And I think that was like one of the most, how do you say it, like wonderful relics from that show. Because every ending Fly Me to the Moon song was by a different vocalist. A lot of them were Japanese. But I think they replaced it with something, and it was just that really pissed off a lot of American
Couldn't
viewers.
get the rights.
Yeah, that makes sense now.
Nope.
Maybe this is a stereotype, but I have this idea in my head of, most Japanese productions as being very domestic, and the idea of having someone like yourself who is bilingual and is doing translation and interpretation on set seems to be somewhat of a rarity. I mean, this might be a misconception, but are there a lot of people like you out in the Japanese entertainment industry?
There are a couple, but I haven't actually personally worked with any of them. I know that I've heard rumors that so-and-so exists somewhere and they happen to have blonde hair. But I mean, the thing is with the Japanese production teams, especially on my level, we're a close-knit group of friends. So it's like, well, the reason I get my next job is not because the company tells me that's my next job. It's because the sound guy from my last job said they need an AD on the next one. So the work that I do generally doesn't really involve language skills. So I don't have to be able to speak English on the set. I just have to be able to speak Japanese, which is why my English is so bad. I'm just not used to using it for 15 years, right? But I think that in the future, especially, one of the things that you'll notice with Japanese directors, and this is common to all of them, without a doubt. I mean, all of them will say that they want to go to Hollywood. And so I have lots of friends, a couple of them who actually have gone to Hollywood to make films. And it just doesn't work out, And the reason it doesn't work out is because here in Japan, you have the director is in charge of absolutely everything. Their producer has no say whatsoever in what's going on screen, right? And so you're selling a character. It's like Sono Shion is a wonderful director that I work with, but he makes certain kind of films, right? And if he tries to make something else, his fans won't like it, of course. So that's everything he makes. But is that exact type good enough for? I'm not saying good enough, but it's not really. It's not. Is it international enough for people to be able to see this, to want to watch it? So a lot of these directors have these great ideas and they have these great things they want to bring abroad, but they don't understand the American mindset enough to get their films properly distributed abroad. So they'll end up with the occasional D flick, which would be like, hey, I worked in Hollywood, but no one's actually seen it. And so I think people who are bilingual and who both understand both cultures are going to be useful in the future, because especially for those kinds of directors. So if anyone wants to go abroad, yes, they want to make it big in Hollywood. And yes, they want to go work with who knows, Spielberg or something like that. They have to have somebody not only to translate the language, but to translate the culture and even the film culture and how films are made and how they're distributed, how money is gathered, and why it's so darn different in the United States and Japan. Well, similarly, American productions will come to Japan and assume that they could just do anything they do like they do in the States. Money will solve everything, right? Well, it doesn't work that way here. So that's why I think that people who are going to be in the industry, who are foreigners and who have had that kind of experience, are going to be important in the future, I would hope. That said, there aren't that many of us. And I think one of the reasons why is that to get up to through the direction that I came as an assistant director, it's really hard. I mean, you seriously do want to quit every single day. It's really, really hard. So doing it for 15 years, it's almost unheard of. So I have heard of the occasional person, oh, there's a foreigner who's coming in, a new AD, and they'll be gone in a year. It's like no one wants to do that again and again and again and again and again. So I would like to see more people do it. I'd like to see more people tough it out. I'd like to see the environment in which we're working to become a little bit stronger and a little bit kinder to the people who are working in it so that they can actually continue. But it will be essential in the future. That's for sure.
Do you think the pandemic has hurt the Japanese entertainment business? Because obviously a lot of these jobs are not as plentiful with some productions not going ahead during the pandemic.
I'm going to say no, not in the long term. It's true that for about a half a year there, stuff slowed down. And for television dramas, we used to have 5 ADs on one project, and now we have to have 3, and we have to have less staff, and we can't get as many extras together. And there are little things that we're doing as precautions that have limited staff. That's true. However, television will always need to be made. You can't just stop making television. Otherwise, you can for like a month, but then you have to go on with it anyway because there's so many people waiting for content, and you can't stop streaming television, right? And the movies that I know and I've worked with, the very huge, large scale ones, maybe there are going to be less of them, I would say. But on the other hand, everything else is really indies. The way that the entire industry works has always been very indies. So you get 10 people on set and you'll film it and you'll get the film out. So they're going to do it anyway. So you can't stop people. So I know of a couple of people who have made films during the lockdown. So we had 30 days or something like that in March or April or something like that. Where
Lockdown, Volume 1.
Basically, yes. So we had one with the pandemic of zombies, and we had another one which was actually about sex workers in Shinjuku during the pandemic, which was not actually a porn film. This was actually more like a documentary, like how are they getting beyond the problems.
How did they weave the zombies into that?
It was a little bit of both. But yeah, so people are going to make films anyway, and they're going to be out there anyway, and people are going to expect it. So I think that if there was a little bit of a hiccup, and there still is kind of an after hiccup that's happening now, I think it's going to be gone really darn fast.
No, yeah, that's really interesting. I have some other friends that do 3D work and other production stuff in the U.S., and they said, yeah, like as you mentioned, there's bigger projects, that may be hurt, but I think the industry as a whole in the States, from what I've heard, is focusing more now on stuff. What can we do with a limited amount of people, and not necessarily, be out in the middle of a busy city and all that kind of stuff.
I think it's a good thing, especially in the United States, where the films over there have gotten so overly huge budgets, out of hand kind of stuff, right? So
let's make another superhero movie
again.
This time $1 billion.
It's not a sequel; it's a threequel.
Oh my God. I would love to see those. I'm sorry. I'd love to see them cut down. I'd love to have just half of the budget. Make it 2 better movies rather than just one toy maker. You know what I mean?
Amen. Agreed 100%.
I'm not really big into the whole superhero movie thing, which seems to be just so huge in America right now.
I've seen like 3 to 5 that I really like, and the rest of them are just like, I don't know. I'm not too into them personally.
Yeah, me neither.
I have a personal hatred for Spider-Man because my name is Parker, and people are like,
oh God,
Peter Parker. So I'm going to shoot web out of my hand and suffocate you to death with it.
Don't you wish?
Yeah, so dear listeners, if you want to piss me off, just mention Spider-Man. That's the easiest way to do it. You're going to get webbed.
You would have been my friend in high school.
So outside of your work, what do you like to do for fun? I see on Twitter you're often posting about doing Japanese tea ceremony.
Yes. On Twitter, I don't talk about my work so much because, you're not allowed to talk about your work on social media. It's one of the caveats of the film industry. So I have to do something else. And my other big hobby, aside from whatever I'm doing on television, is tea. And it's a Japanese tea ceremony. And the reason why it's so interesting to me, it started out as being a history thing because history is amazing and wonderful. And there's so much history in being involved in tea, of course. But it also kind of branches out into almost every other area of Japanesey kind of culture thing. So anyone who likes Japanesey kind of stuff, whether it be kimono or it be calligraphy, the shodo stuff, or if it's Zen, or if it's pottery or whatever it might be, you'd be surprised that all of that stuff is involved in tea. And so the more you learn, learn multiple layers of information, not just this one single thing that you can do. Also on film sets, it's been interesting because even on, like, for example, Snake Eyes, when I was working with them, I would bring my tea bowl on set because the director is like going crazy over there and you can't really do anything to kind of fix them. And I'll just take out the tea bowl and take some hot water and tea and be dead like this, just like mixing the tea bowl, whish. And all of a sudden, everything gets quiet around me because everybody's watching. What are they doing? It's a tea bowl. Wow. So I'll do these tiny little tea ceremonies in front of people and it just calms everyone. It's a very useful skill set. It really is. And so there's so much involved in tea. I just want to share that on Twitter because so many people want to know about it and nobody really tells them the fine details,
It sounds like a really great way to get people to shut up. It's like, I'm not going to tell you to shut up, but I'm going to start making this tea.
It works.
Wow.
There's this one time I was on set and this actress, she was having a hissy fit and she would not come out of her room. And she's an older actress and a Japanese lady. And I seriously did. What I did is I took out the tea bowl and I went like, and I started making the tea. And the door, click, it opened and she's just peeking out. She's like, "Are you making tea?" I'm like, "I am. I like tea." And she goes, she comes out of her room. I'm all happy now suddenly. It's like totally forgot her hissy fit. It was great.
Parker, have you done tea ceremony before?
I have, and my legs fell asleep about 5 seconds into it.
That was the hardest thing for me too. So it was about, I think, 30 minutes long, and my legs, I couldn't focus or relax. Everyone else was very relaxed. I was with some other Chinese foreign exchange students, and I was an exchange student at the time as well. And but my legs were just in terrible, terrible pain.
I have to tell people in general this, but if you're a newcomer to tea, you don't have to sit seiza.
Oh, okay.
It's a thing. Everyone's doing what everybody else is doing and is assuming that's the only way it should be done. But tea is all about the omotenashi in a sense. So if the person who's receiving the tea is uncomfortable, that defeats the entire purpose of the tea ceremony. And especially you guys, because guys, you're allowed to sit cross-legged. You can sit with your legs over to the side. If it's a super, super, super formal tea ceremony, that's one thing. But you're not going to be in those anyway. Those are only for the really super high-level tea people, right? So if you're going into a tea ceremony and you're a newcomer, which you'll be at this point, go in there, sit comfortably, and wait for the tea to come out. And don't torture yourself, okay?
That's good to know.
I'm remembering that a few years back, my mom came to Japan and we stayed at an Airbnb in Sendai, which part of the experience was the father was a very ardent tea ceremony practitioner, and he would do tea ceremony for the guests. And so my mom and I went to do tea ceremony with this master, and we both tried to sit seiza because we didn't know any better. And it was like Dumb and Dumber because we were just like fidgeting. And when he turned around, we would just kind of like stand up for a second. It was so funny.
That's one of the things that happens a lot to newcomers to tea. This is why they don't continue, is that there are certain kind of schools where people who think a tea ceremony is where you're supposed to be all like serious and like sit there really quietly and all that other stuff. But tea is about, like I said, it's about hosting people, right? So if you go to a tea ceremony with the master, which I work with, of course, she's constantly talking during the tea ceremony. So what was your day like? Oh, did you see the news? You'll have this dakugo performer sitting there, and that's what a tea ceremony really is. You're supposed to sit there, enjoy the tea, talk about funny things, talk about something a little bit racy, get people a little bit riled up. That's the one place where you're free, right? That's what it should be like. And so even for the students that come into our tea ceremony to learn, there's no silence there. Everyone's laughing and enjoying themselves while they're learning. And that's the way tea should be taught, ideally.
Very cool. I want to go to one of your tea ceremonies.
Come on over anytime.
We could do a recording session.
You could totally do that.
Yeah. So Ricky, being in Japan for almost 20 years, I'm sure you've had some weird and funny experiences. Do you have any, specific anecdotes that you can share with us today?
Nothing that I can say on radio.
Oh,
That's okay. This isn't radio.
Yeah.
It's a podcast.
yeah. That makes it even better.
Okay. If it's a podcast, that I can give you 3 racy stories.
Ooh, okay.
One I recently mentioned on Twitter. And I was walking through Roppongi, of all places, which I don't go very often, except that Telebi Asahi is there. And so I have meetings over there every now and then. And I was waiting for the bus, and a random young guy, he looks really normal. He walks up to me and he says in English, "I have a foot fetish." I'm like, okay, that's nice. And I turn away, because what are you supposed to say to that, right? And then he's like, "Do you think I shouldn't tell people that I have a foot fetish? Do you think I should be in the closet about it?" I'm like, "Where did you get this script from?" And he's like, "Oh, you don't want to talk about it. You're oppressing me." And thankfully, then the bus came and he just kind of disappeared. I'm like, oh my gosh. And that doesn't happen in Japan, by the way. You don't usually have random weirdos walking up to you announcing their foot fetishes. That's thankfully.
Wow. Yeah, that was.
You've been struck by the Roppongi fit fetish guy.
That is pretty. Yeah, you're right. That kind of stuff, you don't hear about that in Japan. Maybe in New York City. Probably every day in New York City. Yeah.
All right. I'll go into the next one. And I'll be really discreet about it. But let's see. I once met a flasher. And so when I the encounter with the flasher.
I like how this is starting.
I don't know if I should be talking about this. Wait a minute. You guys are like official news people and all this. I don't know if I'm talking about funny stories like this.
We're totally not official news people.
Not official newspaper. All right, here we go. I was reading my book in Inokashira Koen. It was a very nice standard textbook kind of thing, reading. And it was during the Hanami season. And if anybody who's been in Japan long enough knows, Hanami season is when the crazies come out. And so I was just reading my book over there. There's practically no one there. It was a weekday, ICU. And along comes dude in a very suspicious coat. It was like you could have drawn him in a manga. I mean, you knew he was coming, right?
Was he wearing a fedora?
He was.
Yes,
He was wearing a hat.
I knew it.
Oh my gosh.
So Annojo, here comes Guy. He's looking around, all creepy looking. You know it's coming. And I could see him like, oh my gosh, here it comes. And here comes dude. He stands right in front of me. I'm like face in book. And then he goes, whoop. And of course, it's all there, right? All hanging out there. The thing was, the hair in that area was very round looking. And all I could think when I saw the lovely display was donut. And so I burst out laughing. The guy was like, oh my God, he was waiting for a scream or some sort of, I don't know what he was waiting for. But I just couldn't help but just laugh like, oh my gosh, it was so funny. It was so funny. And he goes, oh my gosh. And so he covers up really quickly and he just races out of there.
I think he cured him.
Oh,
He was never
man.
doing that again.
Wow.
He probably joined seminary and is like,
Never again.
Damn.
I'm going back to Jesus now.
I still laugh thinking about that poor guy.
Yeah.
I don't know what he even looks like anymore. I forgot his face and everything. All I can remember is donut. It's
Oh my
like-
gosh. That is hilarious.
Oh my God.
Yeah. As Parky said, yeah, you probably did a number on his desire to ever do that again.
I hope so.
She laughed at me.
I don't know what else somebody could do.
That would be a great episode of Midnight Diner. He like shows up at the bar at like 1 a.m.
I'm sorry telling the producer that. I'm like, it's such a good, benign little show, too. The whole Midnight Diner thing.
Oh, it's my
Really-
parents' favorite Netflix show.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to hear that. Aw. It's one of the films. I've worked on Midnight Diner for quite a long time, and I know the producers there. So it's great. It's a wonderful show.
Where was that actually filmed?
In a warehouse. It's a complete set. All of it. There is no such place.
And it's just is it a generic warehouse used by a lot of productions or?
It is, but it gets really, really hot during the summer. So we have to move the set to another warehouse, something with air conditioning. But it's over in it's a Kiba. It's filmed over in Kiba. There's this like big old warehouse over there, which is next to, I think, where they stored planes or something like that, like in the next door neighbor. And you go in there and there's nothing but these and it's just 2 streets. Seriously, it's like a little triangle of pseudo street there with lots and lots of little signs and stuff.
It's like it's based on Golden Guy, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It is. It doesn't actually exist, but it's really cute. And there's only like 2 of the shops you can actually go into. But of course, you have the interior of the actual shop, which is on television, and then you have, like some things you can just kind of open up and vaguely see that there's something there. But it's quite something. It really is.
Yeah. Kiba has just a bunch of gigantic warehouses. That's where the big what is it? The THX cinema is out there.
Yeah, that's right. It's funny, Midnight Diner. So my parents got me into it. So I spend all year, being excited about going back to America. And when I go back to America, what I do is every night I'll watch this TV show that makes me want to be back in Japan drinking. It's the weirdest thing.
And here's the worst thing. It's like the pandemic right now, right? So we're plagued by the plague and we can't really go out and drink the same way we used to.
Oh yeah, I could not watch that show this year. It would be frustrating.
Yeah, we've had many a conversation about just how big of a component drinking is here, and not being able to do it sucks. One of the reasons we all probably live in Tokyo or close to Tokyo.
Yeah, we just want to get blasted every day. I mean,
No, it's nominication, as they say in Japanese, right?
Oh, for sure.
Going out and drinking with people, this is how you get work. If you want to get your next job on television or something, that's how you do it. If you want to go and get to know big wigs or whatever it may be, you go to the right places at the right time and you have nice drinks with people. You don't start a job working with someone until you've actually had a drink with them, right? So, and once you do, then you're friends for life, So it's really important to involve yourself in that community. Even if you don't drink, you can still kind of hang out over there with friends, and you can still have like tansansui, a bubbly water, which is what I do whenever I'm on keto. So I'll just avoid actually drinking alcohol and just have other stuff. But it's all about sitting there and talking and enjoying the atmosphere with each other.
100%.
All right, so we got the bus guy.
Uh-oh.
We got the flasher, whose
Donut.
life he ruined.
All right.
Donut guy. What's number
3?
Numero tres.
Numero tres. The Seibu Shinjuku Sen guy.
Ooh,
I like where this is going. Yellow trains.
Yellow train. Okay, Seibu Shinjuku Sen. This is quite late in the evening. I'd say maybe 10-ish. Got on a train headed to, where was I headed to? Kamishakuji, that's right. At the time I was living up towards Toei Studios. So get on the train to Kamishakuji. And I sat down on there's, you have two sets of seats, one on each side of the train, and people can stand in between it holding onto the straps, right? Well, I was sitting on the one end on the left-hand side, and way on the other side was his average salaryman dude. He was a little bit overweight, but he was obviously very drunk. Middle-aged kind of guy, very benign, everything. And people got on and off the train, but he fell asleep right away. And he was laying back in his seat, kind of just falling asleep. And as he was, second or third station, he started to loosen his shirt a little bit, right? Just, and loosen his tie and stuff because he was drunk, and I don't know whether he thought he was home or something, but a little bit, And then little by little, next station comes along and he loosened his belt. And he's still kind of slopping here and there. He's totally drunk, totally out of it, completely asleep. And at some point he must have fallen asleep because you could tell. This is about a 20-minute ride between the Shinjuku and my station. And he unbuttoned the top button of his pants. He seriously must have thought he was in his living room because he reached down there and itched the family jewels, right? Itch, itch, itch. The problem was that when he itched the family jewels, Mr. Hello made an appearance. It was like, blop. And what's funny about this is that every single person, there were plenty of people in the train over there. Everyone totally pretended not to see it. They just completely shut up and they just looked away. And of course, me being me, I just burst out laughing. You have to laugh. It's there. The guy, he had no idea. He was asleep. His eyes were closed. He was lying back on the train. And Mr. Hello is just there, just like there, And it was just so funny to see. And then the people next to me, which I didn't notice, I did look over at the lady who was sitting next to me, and she was just like, she couldn't laugh the same way I was laughing for like the Japaneseness of her. She's like pretending I didn't notice, and she knows. She's like, and then turning away. And I don't know what happened to the guy after that because I got off the train first. But I keep on wondering about things like that. Somebody, a dude, tap him on the shoulder and tell him.
I bet he went to the end of the line and the poor train conductor had to wake him and little dude up and tell him to get his ass on the train going back the other way.
I have so much respect for those train conductors that come by trying to wake up the drunks afterwards. It must be a really hard job. Seriously.
There's ambulances, on Friday nights at most stations that go wait like.
Oh, they're just waiting.
Yeah,
they're waiting for us.
What you just described. So there was like a Reddit, maybe it still exists, where just people, a lot of them getting just completely naked as you're describing. They're just so drunk in Tokyo. And yeah, either taking off their shirts or just getting completely naked, whatever.
Isn't there like a Twitter for this? Shibuya Meltdown.
Yeah,
right.
yeah. But yeah, you saw it up close, and you saw the real
Not
thing.
that close. Not that friendly.
Selfie.
Yeah.
One of the things that I did learn, by the way, about considering slight change of topic, about racy stories and stuff like that. My husband's grandmother was actually a geisha over in Kagurazaka. And it was due to these wonderful connections that I often go over to Gion. And I often go to the tea houses in Gion. And I don't have $1 bazillion and I don't own geisha and things like that. But I know the tea house masters and the people who own the tea houses. And if you go to a tea house in the evening, this is the kind of stories you're going to get. It's funny. People are going to say funny things about little things that you're not supposed to say in front of grandma. And that's where that's where the humor kind of degrades itself little by little. Get comfortable with each other. And then the geisha is going to tell you a really funny story about something that happened when a dude like flipped over in the ditch and, all sorts of bits and pieces go flying everywhere. It's wonderful humor. And you just don't get to see this on television. You don't get to hear it on radio, but you get to hear it on podcasts and in geisha houses.
Mm.
It's kind of the funny thing about Japanese society. It's like, I think the facade is, very prim and proper and conservative, and we don't talk about that sort of thing here, little boy. But then you put a few drinks in people, and all of a sudden it's like, whoa, there are ladies present here, sir.
It's the ladies doing the talking.
Yeah.
I think you need to have a word with Jesus.
That's the fun of the nomi. Of course, this week goes back to the concept of the nomikai, right? So to go to the nomikai and this nominication, the reason you go with your boss is because once you get drunk, that's the point when you can tell him what you really think of him, right? And if you don't have that stress hassan kind of thing going on, you're going to have a lot of really pent up, really stressed out people working at any given company.
Yeah, anytime, you do work, whether working directly for a Japanese company or working with them on a contract, I think it's like an unwritten rule. You have to go get completely shit-faced with them because they want to hear, they want to speak frankly with you about it,
Tell me what kind of man you are.
Yeah.
Speaking of weird Japanese drinking etiquette or lack thereof, one thing that, I don't know why I have to say this now, but one thing that I've noticed is a huge gap between the culture in America and in Japan is that when someone does something in like one of these social situations that's weird or wacky or gross or stupid, it is not just okay, but encouraged to not just call them out on it, but to make a massive joke out of it. Mm-hmm. Like, for instance, like if somebody's drinking and they spill like their drink all over them, it's like, ha ha ha, you idiot.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, and if you do that in America, people will get embarrassed and angry. And
I think, Parker, you were telling me a story. You were at a barbecue and you were choking. And
Yeah.
everyone at the barbecue was laughing at
Yeah, I
you. No one
almost
was
died.
helping you. Yeah, you like almost died.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
That's where it gets a little too far.
No, and then afterwards, I'm like sitting down. I'm like got tears all over my face, and I feel absolutely like disgusting.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody else is still laughing.
Gosh, yeah.
I'm just like, fuck all of you. But then I got completely drunk, and then I was laughing too. Welcome to my TED Talk.
Aw, I don't want you to like choke or anything. You need to get some new drinking buddies.
No, I need to not be convinced to go to the cheap yakiniku places on the roof.
Oh,
Those places will kill you because it's impossible to chew the meat. So you either need to be a snake or you're going to die.
I'll take your advice.
Yeah, sounds good. Cool. Yeah, no, Riki, before we finish, are there any shout outs that you want to give or any projects you want to talk about maybe you're working on right now?
One of the films that I worked on recently, which I'd really like everyone to see, is Mi o Tsukushi Ryoricho. And what's interesting about this particular film was it was directed by Kadokawa Haruki. And for those who know that, he's this like an amazing bohemian kind of a guy who got himself arrested and did all sorts of crazy things and wrote some amazing books and did absolutely everything insane that you could do in the history of a person's life. Seriously. And this guy's like, I don't know, maybe 80 years old or something like that. He's really quite old, but he just finished what may be his very best film. Mm-hmm. And he doesn't make a lot of films, and he made a lot of flops when he was younger. But what's interesting about this film is that it's set in the Edo period. And it's a friendship story about two girls, one who lives in Shitamachi and one of them who became like a oiran, right? So the theme, of course, is food. Like everything in Japan, the theme is food, always. What's neat about this is they recreated Edo period recipes as they were originally made with the original recipe thing exactly the same way. And they also released a book at the same time, which was not just about the story. It was also about this particular food is made in this way, so you can do this at home. And there are some amazing things in there. So why this is interesting to me is, as a historian, is that you can go back and look at Victorian recipes, and you'll see some really crazy stuff in there. You'll see arsenic in there. At least those, they have, in order to color foods green, they would use Scheele's green, which I'm sure everybody knows about is a major poison, but it was in the food and they knew it was poisonous. And they would put chalk into bread to make it look white because white bread was nice on the table in the mornings. It was considered the ideal Victorian breakfast. And I mentioned this because the way that food is very important in Japan, but it hasn't really changed all that much over these hundreds of years. So to be able to experience the same things in the same way people did 300 years ago is really quite interesting. And so this film is all about how that's made and how it was developed, and it inspires you to want to make these things yourself. So I do recommend going and seeing that film, please, if you see only one film.
Gotta score some arsenic.
No, we're talking about other countries.
Yeah. No, that's great. Yeah, when we release this episode, we'll try to include that in the tweet. Yeah.
Oh wait, did I say that right? What I'm trying to say is that the Victorian food I actually mean Victorian. I mean England used to do that. Japan did not put arsenic in their food. Japan did not use Scheele's green in their food. We're talking about Victorian England.
Right.
Okay. So no, we don't put arsenic in our foods in Japan. Now you know how ditzy I am.
Was there a Japanese style arsenic that they used?
They just eat fugu.
It was the fugu. You know why teppo nabe is called teppo nabe, right? You don't know? Oh my God.
No.
Okay, there's this nabe kind of food called teppo nabe. And teppo in Japanese means shotgun, right? So teppo nabe is actually fugu nabe. So what they used to do is people who, for various reasons, it was kind of like like Russian roulette in a sense, that we're going to eat this teppo nabe, and if you die, you die. And so people would go out to eat teppo nabe because there's a possibility that they could die. And so it became a kind of a literary meme where, oh, he broke up with his girlfriend. He's really depressed. He's out there eating teppo nabe. Or a person's going out to war. His final meal, he'll have teppo nabe. So it was kind of a thing for a long time because there was a potential that you may possibly die. Of course, these days it's a little different.
Well, interesting. I didn't know that.
Really? Oh,
Yeah.
The more you know.
But yeah, Riki, thank you so much for joining us today.
It's very nice to talk with you guys.
And we'll have to look out for that reformed flasher.
Oh, yes. It's Inokashira Koen. He hangs out there during the spring.
And you've got to read books on philosophy.
Absolutely.
I was going to say that Flash is probably a school teacher now.
He probably teaches at ICU, actually.
Oh my God.
International Crazy University.
Thanks again for joining us today.
Thanks again. Thank you, too.
Hey, listeners, that's right. You listener right there.
Who do you think should be our next guest on Tokyo Wave? Let us know. Drop us a line at wave@tokyowave.jp.
We hope you enjoyed Tokyo Wave.
If you haven't already, you can subscribe to our podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, and YouTube.
Join us again next week on Tokyo Wave.